And welcome to Sugar Pie's first video recipe. Today we're making Irish soda bread in honor of St. Patrick's Day. It's actually a really simple recipe to do. It's a quick bread, which means that you don't have to wait for it to rise. So it's really nice to do, very quick, very simple really. And welcome, and let's get started on some Irish soda bread. Okay, in our bowl here we have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You want to make sure you don't use self-rising for this because we're going to put in a lot of leavening for our soda bread. And to this we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been softened. And we're just going to put this into our flour. And we're going to start using a pastry cutter here, and we're just going to cut this into the flour like so. And what we're working towards is going to be sort of a crumbly texture. See if you can see there. Using a good butter is always helpful. I like cooking with real butter. You know, a lot of people, if you are worried about your fat and things, you can always use a margarine or something. But I think butter just gives you a lot better taste in your cooking. And if you're having a special treat, like our Irish soda bread for St. Patrick's Day, then what's the harm? Alrighty, to our flour and our butter that we've cut in there, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of white sugar, and in this little one here I've already kind of mixed it together. We've got a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a half teaspoon of salt, and we're just going to put that in there too. And then I'm going to just take my pastry cutter and just kind of mix it together a little bit. Now, the next thing that we're going to put in here is going to be, I've got about 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk here. And you probably aren't going to need to use all of that. The key here is you want to put in just enough buttermilk so that your dough begins to come together and just come off the sides of the bowl. You don't want to get it really wet, like a cake batter or even really a cookie batter, or for drop cookies. You want this to be like a bread dough. So we're just going to start by pouring in some of our milk here, and then I'm going to use actually, I think I'll use my wooden spatula. That works better sometimes for this kind of work. And I'm just going to put flour kind of over the top of where I put the moisture, so that it'll soak that up nicely. This makes for a little bit less mess when you're doing this. And you'll see here that we're still, even after I put that in and have mixed it around, we're still pretty dry, so we're going to add some more to this. And let's see where we are with that. And that's our beeper telling us that our oven is preheated to 375. I'm just going to pour the rest of that in there. So maybe you will need the whole 3/4, because this is fairly dry. And it's not even really dry here in Arizona right now, so. Yeah, that's beginning to look kind of like a biscuit dough, which is what it should look like. A little bit crumbly, but we're going to knead it really good. So, we should be good. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to knead this dough for a couple minutes, and then we'll be transferring it to a cookie sheet to actually bake it. So let me get that stuff ready and we'll be right back. Okay, so what I've done here is I have what I usually use to work with dough, since I don't have fancy marble countertops and all the other stuff. I use just a silicone pad like you'd use for baking or anything else, and I've just put that down, lightly floured it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our dough that's in the bowl here, and I'm going to start by, while it's still in the bowl, just kind of pulling it together. Okay, there we go. You'll still see there's a lot of, it's really kind of dry. But I think we're going to be good. So I'm going to put this out here, and what we're going to do now is we're going to knead this for a couple minutes, and if it tries to come apart on us like that, we're just going to push this back in. We're going to turn this into about 6 inches, 6.5 inches. By just kind of pressing here like that. And here is our soda bread dough. And our next step is going to be transferring it to a greased cookie sheet, and then we're going to pop it in the oven at 375 and leave it about 35 to 45 minutes. We're just going to look for it to be, nice and brown like a bread. But before I do that, we have to get it on our cookie sheet, and we have to make our traditional cross hatches in it. Alrighty, so stick with me for the next step. So we have our cookie sheet greased. I just sprayed that with a little non-stick spray. Nothing fancy. We're going to drop our dough on there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our sharp knives here, and I'm just going to go back to my flour bin here, and I'm going to stick my knife in the flour and just rub the blade ever so lightly, and then we're going to go in about 1/2 inch like so. We're just going to make nice cross hatch, just like this. Now the next thing we're going to do is use a little egg wash. That's going to give it a nice sheen, and then we'll pop it in the oven. So what I've done is taken just a regular egg, and we just beat it up nicely in our little thing here. I'm just going to take a pastry brush, and I'm just going to brush the top here with the egg. And really all this does is, this is strictly ornamental. It's just going to give this a nice glossy finish. So, next step, we're just going to pop it in the oven for about 35 to 45 minutes. And we'll have Irish soda. So our nice Irish soda bread is done. Served with just some really good butter. You could also serve it with a jam or something. Would also be very good. Makes a great complement to an afternoon tea. So happy St. Patrick's Day, Bill Nepwari, and enjoy.